Here's the uncomfortable truth no one likes to say out loud. Europe didn't wake up one morning and choose crisis. It walked into it slowly, one agreement at a time, one temporary commitment after another. And now the bill is coming due. This is the NATO trap. And whether Europe can afford it anymore is the real question. For most people, NATO sounds simple. An alliance. Safety in numbers. If one country is attacked, everyone shows up. But that's the slogan, not the system. Because NATO isn't just about soldiers. It's about money, budgets, factories, energy, debt, and promises that don't expire when politics change. Right now, this matters more than it has in decades. Europe is facing weak growth, aging populations, high energy costs, and governments already stretched thin. At the same time, NATO spending is rising fast, not symbolically, mathematically. Here's how it works in plain terms. NATO asks members to spend at least 2% of their GDP on defense. That doesn't sound dramatic until you do the math. For a large European economy, that's tens of billions every single year. Not once, every year. Regardless of recessions, regardless of elections, regardless of public mood. And most of that money doesn't stay local. Weapon systems are expensive. Advanced jets, missile defense, cyber infrastructure. Much of it is designed, patented, or manufactured outside Europe, often in the United States. So Europe increases spending, and capital quietly flows outward. This is where the trap tightens. Because Europe's old economic model depended on cheap energy and open trade. That model is gone. Energy is more expensive. Supply chains are fragmented. Growth is slower. But military obligations don't shrink when economies slow down. They expand when fear rises. There's an irony here that few leaders mention. The more insecure the world feels, the more Europe spends on defense, the less room it has to invest in growth, which makes it weaker, which increases insecurity. It's a feedback loop, not a conspiracy, just arithmetic. Supporters say this is the price of safety, and maybe they're right. But here's the part that's rarely discussed. NATO was built during a time when Europe was younger, faster growing, and demographically strong. Today, many European countries are aging rapidly. Workforces are shrinking. Debt levels are already high. Defense spending doesn't create long-term productivity. It protects what already exists. So the trade-off is quiet but brutal. More tanks, fewer schools, more missiles, less infrastructure, more commitments, less flexibility. Politically, this is hard to admit. No one wins elections by saying, "We can't afford this forever." So the language shifts. Spending becomes investment. Permanent obligations become temporary responses. Emergency measures quietly turn into baseline budgets. And the public mostly doesn't notice until taxes rise, or services fall, or both. Zoom out and the risk becomes clearer. Europe isn't collapsing, but it is locking itself into a system that assumes constant threat and constant spending. A system where exit is politically unthinkable and reduction is framed as weakness. That's the trap. Not NATO itself, but the financial gravity it creates. So here's the question Europe hasn't answered yet. Can an aging, slow-growing continent sustain a security model designed for a very different era? Or will protecting Europe over time quietly hollow it out? There's no dramatic ending here, no sudden collapse, just a long series of budget decisions, and the realization years from now that the most expensive commitments are the ones you never planned to escape.